Standard Oil heiress Millicent Rogers was a socialite, fashion icon, jewelry designer, art collector, and champion of Native American civil rights.
That's right, and she settled in Taos and later died there, but not before putting her distinctive stamp on American style. Author Cherie has chronicled the life of Millicent Rogers in her book, Searching for Beauty. Good morning.
Good morning.
A beauty yourself, by the way.
Oh, well, thank you very much.
It's a pleasure to have you with us, and what a wonderful book that you have written, and I know a lot of people across New Mexico really appreciate that.
Yeah, we absolutely do. We're so glad to have you on this morning, and we want to know, why are you telling Millicent Rogers' story?
Well, it was a story that needed to be told. It hadn't been told, and that's always very, very attractive to a writer.
Sure.
And Millicent reinvented herself basically in every decade of the first half of the 20th century. She led a very, very interesting life.
She did, and a very unique sense of style, which people still to this day talk about. Can you talk a little bit about what was so unique about her sense of style?
Well, she personalized her style. No matter where she went, she integrated a lot of local elements. If she was an Austrian, she had lots of money, she wore the finest couturier clothes, but she would adapt the primitive elements that were being worn by the dirndls and the Tyrolean hats and feathers. And she did the same thing when she came to New Mexico. She immediately wanted to wear the broomstick skirts, what she saw out at the Pueblo, and she would integrate those elements in it, and that was very original and very unique at the time.
At the time,
she broke the rules and put her own personal stamp on it.
Absolutely.
Now, what enduring role did she play in the fashion world?
Well, because she did this unique thing where she mixed these primitive elements, she could popularize her own personal style. And also, there were so many rules then. I think that today, after the 60s and the hippies, it doesn't seem so unique, but then it was very, very unique.
Right, and taking risks. It was risky as well.
Well, and she put Southwestern fashion on the map, certainly. I mean, that can be a costume, but she made it a style that could be taken to New York, popularized. It's what we think of now, I think, a lot with Ralph Lauren.
That's right. I was just going to say Ralph Lauren. I mean,
I sort of whisper that because he doesn't really say that she was his inspiration, but it's certainly in there somewhere.
It's indicated somewhere in there. I always thought, I mean, coming from New York, I always, when you would watch the runway shows with Ralph Lauren, that's who you think of, because that was the inspiration. Absolutely.
She put her stamp on that look, and that's a hard thing to do.
Cherie, when did she actually move to Taos?
She moved to Taos in 1947. She'd had a somewhat disastrous love affair with Clark Gable. And her friends, the clothing designer Gilbert Adrian that designed all those fabulous clothes for the Hollywood actresses at that time, and he was married to Janet Gaynor. They brought her here to mend her broken heart, and that was really the first thing that she did that was off the plan of going places and following American history.
Well, we actually have some video of her home in Taos we want to take a look at as well.
It's a fabulous property, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, just beautiful. Let's take a look at that as well. I mean, look at that. Is that unbelievable? And is that now?
The house is still there, very much the way it was when she had remodeled it. When she bought it, it was really sort of a dump. It had just been a summer house with without plumbing and things. She hired the local Indian workmen, actually Tony Lujan's nephews, and they remodeled it. But she didn't want to do it the way she did a New York apartment. She really lived in it with the rugs on the floor. She wanted very much to live in the Indian style.
Now tell us about her passion for Native Americans.
Well, like most of the Anglo women, those Bohemian women that came to Taos, they loved that idea of the noble savage. That was it at the time. But Millicent really fell in love with the Indians. First off, they made things. They had the pawn jewelry. There were things to shop for and collect, and goodness knows she was a collector. She loved camping out in the Indian lands. She liked the pageants, the dances, but she was horrified that the American government knew the Indians by numbers instead of names, and she put some of her money behind helping them build the Indian Health Center, or at least getting them to D.C. for those Indian rights to be recognized. But she liked them personally. She had an Indian lover, a young man. She liked the Indian way of life. To some degree, she turned against the white man, the hand that had fed her.
Because of what Clark Gable probably broke her heart.
Well, I don't think it had to do with Clark Gable. I think she adapted her whole sensibility, and she found that Indian life, the economy, with language, words. She'd had a lot of artifice in her life.
Well, it sounds like she had a lot of compassion for the things with which she had passion. So, you know, she had compassion for all the people around her, and that I like that, you know, about how she didn't want people to be remembered by numbers. They want she felt for people, and I think that comes across in the book as well.
I think she did, and she was selective in her philanthropy, but if she was moved, that's where she put her attention and her money.
Yes, absolutely. And she actually had a bit of a rebellious nature as well. Let's talk about that. Some stories you could tell?
Well, the most rebellious thing she ever did was when she was 22, she scandalized her family by eloping with an Austrian count almost twice her age and taking off and going to Europe. So she was always a headliner for her behavior. But she had that little bit of personal spunk. There's a famous tale of a Hollywood movie mogul that she wasn't being terribly alert at a dinner, and he said, "Millicent, am I boring you?" And she said, "No, not yet." So she was really very she could be very outspoken. She lived on her own terms. She really lived on her own terms.
Now, what do you find like most endearing about her?
It's hard not to like a woman that traveled with 7 dachshunds on an ocean liner and had life jackets made for them.
Oh, that's so cute.
She had quite a sense of whimsy. I think that was the thing that I liked about many things I liked about her, but that certainly stands out. Well, and I didn't always like her. I mean, she could be quite willful. Well, when you do a biography, you take the long, objective look at a person. And I think overall there was much to admire about Millicent, but she wasn't perfect.
And she's left a lot of wonderful things behind that people can still enjoy, because we also have a museum right in Taos that showcases a rare collection of Native American art and jewelry. So can you tell us a little bit about the museum?
Well, the Millicent Rogers Museum, contrary to what a lot of people think, she didn't create the museum. It was founded by her sons and the estate lawyer that after she died looked at her fabulous collection, 2,000 to 3,000 pieces of jewelry and rugs and things, and said, what are we going to do with all this junk? So they created a foundation, and it became the Millicent Rogers Museum that we know now.
Great, it's wonderful. And of course, a lot of people are going to want to read the book, so where can we tell our viewers to get it?
Well, here in Albuquerque, I'm getting ready to speak about it, and they're selling it at Alamosa Books on Holly Street. Most independent bookstores, Barnes & Noble, and in Santa Fe Collected Works.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Cherie,
it was a pleasure to meet you, and thanks for sharing Millicent's life with us. Thank you.
Now, who's going to be the next face of Gertrude Zachary? You decide. More on that coming up next.